All right, let's bring you some news just in from Swaziland. King Mswati III has appointed Cleopas Dlamini as the new Prime Minister. He has been briefing the media following weeks of violent protests in the country. Let's get an update from our reporter, Tumelo Machogo. Of course, we've been keeping an eye on the events and what's been unfolding in Swaziland. This happened weeks before we had our own problems here in South Africa. Let's get an update then, Tumelo. Take us through what has been going on in the meantime, as of course our focus has certainly been here in South Africa. We now have a new Prime Minister in Eswatini. Talk to us about this. We understand there's been a media briefing too. Let's talk to that.
Well, Flo, the king just actually announced that Cleopas Dlamini is the new Prime Minister of Eswatini. You'd remember that Tumelo Machogo has been acting in that position for over a year now. So now they just announced a new king. But you remember also that there was like a lot of unrest in that country. The country, it actually now has the king has finally addressed the nation, telling the nation that he has condemned what has happened in the country, and saying that the damage that has been caused by the looting and the unrest that happened in that country a couple of weeks ago has actually will cost the country about 3 billion emalangeni, which is about 3 billion rand in South African rand, to rebuild everything in that country. So he's saying that they have agreed with the government that they will put aside about 500 million emalangeni to actually start rebuilding that country of what has happened after the looting happened in that country. He condemned the looting in that country, calling actually the people who were doing it manic, and also saying that the people who are not normal, they would not cause that kind of devastation in a country, knowing that their country is actually one of the poorest countries in Africa, saying that he condemned the incident that is happening in that country.
Yeah, yeah, Tumelo, I mean, I really want to still talk about some of those tensions and the unrest, and whether or not we're seeing that kind of calming at the moment in Swaziland. I remember the last time you and I had a conversation, there were some issues at the border there in terms of trucks that were, trying to get in and bringing goods into the country. And I wonder how that situation is looking at this time. No doubt you've been monitoring that for us, Tumelo.
Well, this press briefing, or rather the meeting that he has called with the nation, was actually expected to start at 10 o'clock in the morning. But in the morning, pro-democracy protesters were also out in their numbers in Manzini, where they were actually protesting there. But the army dispersed the crowd within minutes, and also the press conference also started quite late because most of the people were trying to boycott that national address that the king has called. So the community actually were going out in their numbers, going to protest, but they were dispersed by the security forces, because these are the people that have been calling for reform in that country, calling for political reform, and also calling for democracy in that country, saying that they want to elect their own leadership in that country. So that's what has been happening in the country, but also we've been following developments in that country. About 2-3 days ago, they started having shortages of fuel because they get most of their fuel from Durban, and then the trucks could not travel into that country. We've been seeing like a lot of queues. People have been sending us videos and pictures of a lot of queues, people waiting to go to petrol stations to actually fill up their cars. So people have been actually struggling. They're struggling now with the fuel in that country. People saying that this is the first time they've seen that happening in that country, where fuel has not been arriving in the country because due to the unrest that is happening in KwaZulu-Natal, cars are lining up in long queues, and people are still waiting to fill up their cars because there is a huge shortage of fuel in that country.
All right, Tumelo Machogo, let's leave it there. Thank you very much for giving us that update and the breaking news coming from Eswatini. King Mswati III appointing a new Prime Minister of Eswatini. We'll certainly bring you more details on that later on.